Welcome to In a World with Real Media. I'm your host, Brad Burrow. In this podcast, we'll dive into the lives of the most successful people in business. We'll learn how they overcame adversity, took advantage of opportunities, and learned from their experiences. Learn from our experts, get inspired, then go live your story. It's In a World with Real Media. Welcome to the In a World with Real Media podcast. I'm Brad Burrow, and we have Lindsay Howerton with us today. So let me tell you a little bit. This is going to be a really interesting podcast. I'm really excited about it for reasons that you're going to see coming here. Let me tell you a little bit about her. She's an experienced senior leader with proven success in building unified and profitable organizations through people, process, and data improvement. She's passionate about fostering collaboration, driving innovation, and achieving sustainable long-term growth. That sounds really good to me, by the way.
Sounds very fancy. I don't know if I'm actually that fancy in person.
We're not worthy. We're not worthy. Excuse me. So, Lindsay, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. This is really awesome. What we like to do in the In a World with Real Media podcast is learn about your background, kind of how you became who you are. So tell me a little bit about where you grew up and, where you started and all of this.
Yeah, the path to get here.
Yeah, right.
The fancy words. Yeah. Well, I did not have a fancy background. So I am from Brookfield, Missouri, which is in north central Missouri. My dad ran grocery stores and we farmed. So I have a farm kid work ethic. And I think that's what really led me into manufacturing and working a lot in trades. Yeah. So I'm fortunate that, I thought I was going to save the world through writing. I got an ag journalism degree from Mizzou, and
that's one of my questions, by the way.
Well, there you go. So
like
MIZ.
Ag journalism, amazing.
Yeah, and it was something that my parents thought was a bit of a disaster because going to college was encouraged but not encouraged because staying on the farm and helping the family was also something that was a priority to them. So I chose to go to college and put myself through college, and it was incredible to get the communication skills, but otherwise I didn't do good at stats, and I do a lot of math now. I got to work as my first job with a not-for-profit, so I got to step into that world, and I helped with an organization that actually had a food cooperative that helped feed thousands of people in Missouri, and I ran a meat company. So
wow.
And I was...
You've done a lot of different things, haven't you?
Yeah. Well, looking back and wondering why people didn't respect me as a kid straight out of college walking into a meat packing facility and telling people what to do. They wanted to, smack me. And now at this age, at the age of the people I was leading, I can now very fully understand how they felt that way because I was really green and I learned through a lot of mistakes, which is what I've done my entire career. So.
But growing up on a farm, I mean, you can fix anything with baling wire and duct tape, right? I mean,
always.
I mean, you probably learned a lot of skills that just
mechanical.
Yeah.
Actually, I think, my dad treated me like the boy. There was not an exception. I bucked bales and
worked hard,
lifted feed bags, and we had hogs. And so I'm a 4-H FFA kid and learned leadership and public speaking skills through that, and deep in faith and family and community. So I think that's always been ingrained in me, and it was a great platform, but it was a rough platform. I got up, my alarm went off at 2:30 in the morning.
Is that right?
And I would go out in the dark and take care of, my dad gave me a pig when I was 11, and I actually ran a 20-sow operation by the time I was in high school. I was entrepreneurial. I figured out how to build my own business, and that's what paid for my college, any of the expenses I had. And I never had an outside job. I'd always worked there. I built my own thing.
You probably know how to overcome adversity, don't you?
I do.
I bet that taught you that, right?
I did, yeah. And I had a brother that was severely mentally and physically disabled. He was the mental capacity of a 2-year-old. So I learned a lot about acceptance and understanding. And, in the 80s, it wasn't as widely accepted to have a child with a disability. And I kind of remember how people would look at us or act differently. And so I think as a coach in my current career, it also has helped me to just never judge and look people straight in the eye and encourage them to work hard and to always be optimistic, because mindset was a key thing for me. If I didn't have a positive mindset through some of the trauma that I was raised in, it wasn't, my mom was pretty sick through most of my life. She had sudden cardiac death syndrome and stage 4 breast cancer 3 years later.
Oh my gosh.
There were just a lot of things to overcome, but I was very strong because my dad was military and tough on me, and I never felt that anybody was as hard as he was. So he was great training for me.
Yeah.
Manufacturing environment felt simple and easy, and for a lot of people might feel difficult.
Compared to what you grew up with.
Yeah, the yelling and the hard work seemed right in line with how I had been raised.
You have to drop and do 10 push-ups if you didn't do things right.
Yep, you better just do it.
It's kind of a missing thing in our society today, don't you think? I feel like that the toughness is not there anymore,
well,
or as much.
Maybe that's an overcompensation, though, where, we went through something. My grandparents went through the Great Depression. I remember my grandma talking about that they were so hungry she had gone and asked for a potato from a neighbor. This is one of my favorite stories from her, and that her dad beat her and made her take the potato back, and they were starving. And she was self-made. They were the people that I looked up to the most, as my grandparents bought rental houses in my hometown, and my town has 4,000 people. And, as compared to, I was a kid that was raised in a trailer, it felt like they had a mansion because they had a real house.
Yeah.
And they were buying more houses. And so in high school, I got to help, mud and paint and help them flip houses. And, ironically, that's something that, I now do, is have single family homes, just like my grandparents. But they taught me so many valuable things about business. I mean, farm kids, especially, I think you learn a lot about how to manage money, how to take care of other things, the responsibility of those animals need to be fed, and you can't not get up and go do it. But my kids raised in the city don't have the same work ethic.
Yeah.
They are different, but they're different in a good way too. They've had so many more resources. They're so smart and well-versed in things that I didn't have exposure to. So I think we have to look at it as it's positive, but it's different.
Yeah. It's a good thing. Brookfield, I think about. So I don't know if I have ever told you this story, but I bought an airplane in Brookfield.
You didn't. That's amazing.
So there was it was called a Mooney.
Yeah.
And there was a gentleman that lived there that had a publishing company.
Yeah.
And so he was sold his Mooney, and we drove up to Brookfield, looked at it, flew out of that little airport just north of town there, and ended up buying the plane. And I had it for probably, 10 years maybe.
Well, my mother-in-law's property almost touches, and father-in-law touches the airport.
Is that right?
Right there.
Yeah,
so
little
exactly
bitty.
where,
I mean, like 1,000-foot runway or
and
something like that. But
publishing company is where everybody in my town works. A lot of people there. My mom worked there.
I can't remember his name, but
Walsworth. Yeah.
Well, it wasn't Walt. It was a different one though. It wasn't Walsworth's the big one, right? Yeah. But anyway, it was very interesting. Very interesting.
Not very many people know. With 4,000 people,
Yeah.
it's right along Highway 36 in between Chillicothe and Macon, but most people don't know where it is.
My son went to Hannibal LaGrange, and so we'd drive down 30. Is it 36?
Highway 36.
Yeah, and I thought this is such an easy drive compared to I-70. Little sidebar there, but we've driven by there lots of times.
Yeah.
So it's great up
That's
there.
cool.
Yeah, so really cool. So tell me, agricultural journalism. I mean, now I get it a little bit more, but why did you think you wanted to go into journalism?
Well, agriculture to me was the backbone of America and still is. And it taught me so much and gave me so many opportunities that I thought if we could talk about family farmers in America and we could write more about their role in both communities and society, that, we could bring more awareness to buying local and supporting even the farmers market, just simple things. You don't have to suddenly be, all into Whole Foods and buying everything local. But if you just go on Thursday or Saturday and pick up some bread, buy some eggs, do a little bit of your part, that you can support some of these communities. But I found it was hard when you get into magazine publishing, that some of these stories that are great heartfelt stories don't don't get published because the advertisers are often not in the same line of what you're trying to promote.
Yeah.
And so it was an interesting education for me very quickly that politics changes the story.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's I think it's interesting too that we're kind of coming full circle back to eating clean.
Yep.
And you know what? Like my wife and I go to the farmers markets all the time and get vegetables and fruit and meat and stuff like that. But you know that meat is going to be much better for you.
It is. We raised everything ourselves, and I just supporting local economy and local businesses. While I believe there's room for everybody in our fair market, I also think just looking for the people that you grow up with, the people alongside you, the downtown, versus going to the big box store. If you can buy a small percent of your items from people who are, arm in arm with you whenever there's a problem, and will show up for you, that's
community, right?
That's community, and rural communities are based on that. I've seen time after time where things would happen and everybody rallies around the person that is suffering in whatever way.
Yeah.
And it's just a different type of environment. It's also hard to be, invisible in a small town. You will go to the gas station and my grandma will call and say, "Why are you at the gas station?" You
in gas.
And it was nice to come to a big city. I remember going to Columbia, Missouri and thinking, this is such a big town. How am I going to be able to navigate this? And so Kansas City was incredibly frightening to me because my parents didn't let me leave the farm. I had not had practice driving in a big city. I had been so sheltered. And
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Yeah. So just another little sidebar. My kids went to Kansas City Christian School.
Yeah.
So we probably live, I don't know, it's a 30-minute drive, 25-minute drive from 159th down to Prairie Village, 79th. And they had to learn how to drive, to and from school. Yep. And I've always thought about that because when I grew up, I grew up in high school. I was in Western Kansas. So similar to you, probably. I didn't work on a farm, but it was a small town. Yeah. But they learned how to drive in, rush hour. Right. And it's just, and you think about the difference in a story like that, they were kind of prepared to, so they don't think anything of it.
No, but it's kind of like what we talked about on it's different.
Yeah.
And they're equipped in a more worldly way than I was. I can run a tractor and they wouldn't have a clue.
Yeah.
But these kids could drive in traffic. And as an adult, that was intimidating to me.
Yeah.
It's some of the just subtle differences that, I can tear apart a machine and my kids can't do that. But they can be in things where that's hard for me. So I think there's benefits and negatives to both.
Well, you made it here today. So you drove through the Kansas City traffic. So good job.
I made it.
One of the things I wrote down is you have you have a lot of experience in sales.
I do.
And obviously you're very, very good at it. How did you learn how to sell? That didn't really come from farming, did it? Or maybe it did.
Well, I would argue it probably did.
Okay.
That I was so competitive at showmanship.
Yeah.
I wanted to win wherever I competed in 4-H and FFA. And so, I showed hogs, I had exhibits, I, did public speaking, and I wanted to come in first. So I was very careful to watch the people that were successful. I didn't have mentors. I didn't have tutors. In fact, sometimes where I came from was a little bit more dysfunctional. I could have gone the opposite direction, but instead I would look for the people that I admired or that could teach me something without resources. And I would watch them as many times as I could to mimic what they did. But I'd also say my grandpa was an excellent salesperson.
Oh, yeah?
My grandpa... My grandparents, the one I mentioned, they were self-made. My grandpa would buy cars and resell them. He would find opportunities. They bought land. They came from nothing and they built a pretty substantial empire. He would have people come in and sell something to them. And when they would leave, he would talk about, did you notice that he fidgeted with his hands? And when I asked him this question, he didn't look me in the eye. And so he taught me to pick up some of the body language. And so I really became a student of people. I would watch things that maybe traditional salespeople might be taught in some sort of sales class, and I'm 10 and my grandpa is talking about how people are fidgeting with their hands and looking away at specific things.
I got to stop doing that.
Yeah. Let me tell you about your tells. Yeah. Yeah. But it was interesting that he was great at showing me details where people were uncomfortable or how he was able to lean in and they leaned in. So he was my first teacher.
Amazing.
Because he loved sales, and sales was how he was able to turn nothing into something in my small town.
So that was kind of in your DNA. I mean,
was.
in the way you're raised. That's pretty awesome.
It was.
And so you use some of those things that you learned from your grandfather probably every day, I bet.
Yeah. Well, I'd say I'm a very technical person, and I live in a very social world. So I'm someone who's great at the details, and I'm fast paced at it. I enjoy operations. If you see me today as a fractional COO, I've worked in 35 different industries.
That's number 8 on my list, by the way.
Perfect. I can almost see what they are. Yeah. But I've worked in 35 different industries. I will gravitate to the smartest people, and I'm blessed that they hire me to help them with the gifts that I have, but I've learned from every single person that I've worked with. I mean, I've been out on my own for almost 9 years, and salesmanship, I started really in sales. I ended more in operations in my career, that I started to gravitate more towards the technical, but I'm lucky that I can do both. Just by fantastic, successful people that I could glean a little bit of something from throughout my career, and there's been a lot of them.
Yeah, that's great. Well, the next thing on my list is Original One. So I know a little bit about, I've worked with some people, Jim, I think that you know. We've worked together on some things in the past, but what a great story. You know, I mean, well, tell me a little bit. I know that it's not around anymore, right? Is it?
He's not. Yeah. So, Original One was a hot pack manufacturing facility on Southwest Boulevard. So if you've ever had a famous barbecue sauce in Kansas City, or a tomato-based salsa, sometimes tomato sauces in the grocery store, there were hundreds and hundreds of products made out of that facility. And
down on Southwest Boulevard.
Down on Southwest Boulevard. So there were multiple partners in that.
Yeah.
But I was blessed enough that Joe Polo was the owner at the time, and I was doing something entrepreneurial. I was being a food broker and working with some Kansas City companies who introduced me to Joe. I started in sales for him. And
like selling to grocery stores and places?
I was a food broker. I was traveling 7/8 state territory, repping a bunch of different products, and I was specializing in Hy-Vee stores. And Joe saw an opportunity for me to help with sales to get his products, because they had a pretty extensive line of their own products, and then they packed for a lot of other people. And he was so entrepreneurial. He contracted with me to be able to sell products for him. And as soon as my husband, who, by the way, I met in kindergarten, he and I are from the same town.
Is that right? Amazing.
Yeah. I've been married for 26 years. So we had the opportunity with him changing jobs to come to Kansas City. Joe's interview process was a little bit unconventional. As I came in and said I was going to be in Kansas City, he pointed at a desk and said, "Well, there's your desk." And I said, "Yeah, I don't want to work here. I want to keep doing the thing I want to do." And he's like, "Yeah, no, there's your desk. This is you should come work here. We'll get you here." And so I started working a couple days a week, and he eventually got me to be there full time to be able to help. And I owe him the world, because he let me work every position in the facility almost. So as soon as I would figure something out, he'd let me do something else.
Now, I remember at one time Billy Butler was doing it. Didn't he do a barbecue sauce there?
I worked with him. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. We were able to partner with a remarkable amount of famous people, both in the community and outside the community, that would, decide to do a sauce or a product and come and promote it. And, they would partner with other large companies. So we had some incredible people show up and do things. A lot of people watch the Hot Sauce Challenge, and Da Bomb is one of the products on Hot Sauce Challenge.
Did you try that?
Oh yeah, that was great. I've tried all of the extreme hot sauces, way hotter than Da Bomb, but we made all of those in the facility.
And you're still alive.
Yeah, well, I'm still a lover of hot food.
Yeah,
that's something that you acclimate to. But we had a test kitchen where we developed a lot of products, so we got to taste the coolest stuff. We had a chef there that would develop things. Joe was truly innovative and before his time in the products that he developed. So that was a really unique opportunity, and I got to be a leader there. I would say, I still didn't have a lot of confidence in myself when I started there. I was young in my career, and he gave me the confidence in allowing me to work so many different positions. I wouldn't be sitting in front of you without him.
So another great experience. I mean, in what you're doing as a fractional COO.
Yep.
I mean, you probably learned a lot from that experience.
I did. He eventually let me work as his right hand to run operations and be senior vice president and to feel the weight of what it would be like to be a business owner.
Yeah.
That was one of the best gifts, because I think you know as an employee what it's like, but to have that ownership mentality with the full weight of the liability and the financial and all of the worry, he let me be his right hand. I worked there for 8 years, and it was an incredible place to work, but it was really hard. Some days we had almost doubled in size. We were running 7 days a week at times with all shifts. Think about that.
Out of the Southwest Boulevard facility?
Well, most of the products were 200 degrees or higher in the bottle, and we were doing 1,200 bottles an hour, and there were 3 production lines, and we were hand capping every bottle, and you've got to keep all that stuff on the floor, make sure everything's clean. It's a high stress, low margin. It's still, to this day, with all the things that I have done, one of the hardest businesses that I've ever had to help run.
It's prepared you for other things, though, right?
Yeah, it was baptism by fire. It was one of the most difficult, and I think, honestly, a lot of them have been easy. And it's always interesting when I come into a business and work with a business leader. They'll tell me how hard it is, and I don't understand, because they're unique, and there's nothing like them. But I find that there's so much commonality. The backbone of business is very, very similar, no matter where you are and what you're doing.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, so let's switch gears a little bit.
Yeah.
I want to go into when you and I first met. Joe Calhoun introduced us, and you reached out to me. And
love Joe. And
me too. I love Joe too. And we did this. You took me through this exercise. So I wanted to do that today on the podcast because I was so impressed by that. And I don't know what you call this. Is there a term for this? Is it?
Well, what I would say
Lindsay,
is, I have a client that will just call from his truck and say, "Hey, Lindsay, I need you to do the thing," and I know exactly what that is.
Let's call it the thing.
Just call it the thing. But, what I have learned as both in sales and operations is, if I don't understand the person, it's really hard for me to implement the process. So I have the habit, and ironically, some really large national companies have me do this process with, clients or potential talent in their organization to be able to determine some of their greatest gifts or potentially their challenges. And so I've developed my own series of questions throughout the years to be able to understand who and what you are so that I can tell you with quick rapport what I see in you and where potential challenges are. And I honestly do it for future clients or partners or anybody.
So you've kind of developed what you do on your own a little bit.
I have.
It's not based on
this
like
was mine.
a typical thing? Like, I'm trying to think of one of the names.
Well, so there's DISC. There's in
Yeah.
a lot of the personality profiles, there are some main components.
Yeah.
So I will say that I've patterned the different categories, but my questions I've come up with on my own to be able to get you in the categories.
Okay.
So, but DISC is a great one that you can pattern it off of.
Disc. I'm
because-
trying to think of the one Joe does, but I'm high vision, high.
Yeah. Well, there's so
Quick
many.
start
There's
and-
there's Colby. There's
Colby, that's what it is,
so
Colby.
I've been trained in Colby, Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, Strength Finders. So
Yeah.
I'm a nerd at all of these.
Yeah.
And I think again, just being a student of
Your
always-
grandfather started you down that path, didn't he?
Well, and he did teach me you need to build rapport with the person to get to the goal. And
Yeah.
so I'm probably somebody that looks at the goal and thinks about the person. And I've really learned that you have to think about the person to get to the
Yeah.
goal. And so this is why I've developed a quick start way
Yeah,
to
yeah.
be able to figure out your greatest gifts. But
Yeah.
it establishes a rapport, as you probably experience with me,
Yes.
that links us together in a different way. And my goal is to change lives, honestly. If you
Yeah.
see the purpose statement of me, I want to change as many lives as I can, as fast as I can. So while I feel like this is sometimes a parlor trick in how I can do this,
Yeah.
I understand that it makes a big impact for people because they understand themselves differently. I hear a lot, you explain me better than I could have explained myself.
Yeah.
And it's by accident that I did it, but it has been very successful for me.
Yeah. So I thought it'd be cool.
Do you want me to do the thing?
Can you do the thing?
I'll
Is
do
it
the thing.
is it okay?
I would love to.
You'll have a podcast with you doing the thing. That'll be interesting. I'm not sure I want to put this out in front of everybody, but no, that's cool. So yeah, just take me through
Yeah.
the process, like
I will.
the
I'm
first
gonna
time we
do it-
met.
I'm going to do it just like I was interviewing someone. So,
Okay.
If I see you in elementary school and you walk out onto the playground for the first time and you see the monkey bars, they're high, they're kind of scary, you've never seen them before. Are you the first kid to go up and across, second kid, third kid? I've had someone say they were the 10th kid because they needed velocity and airspeed. And which one would you be?
I'd probably be the second kid. Yeah.
If I saw you in line at a big box store and you're last in line, someone cuts in front of you, but you can't tell if they saw you or not. Do you tap them on the shoulder, say line's back there? Do you leave it alone, not say anything? I've had a candidate tell me they would kick him in the shin. We stopped the interview. What would you do?
I would definitely be irritated by that,
Yeah.
but I would probably not do anything.
Okay. If I were to ask your friends and family to rate you 1 through 10 on your level of autonomy as a leader, and 10 is I am what I would say highly competitive, almost conflict oriented, in the sense that I don't feel the conflict. I'm going to run into the fire and not feel the heat, versus 1 is I want harmony, stability, the calmer the day, the more I get to do one thing at a time. And I have, not as much conflict. I get to be a team player. How would your friends and family rate you outside of work?
Probably 8.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Extrovert or introvert, and then I'm going to explain these. So extrovert is I'm fueled by the relationship. I am someone who, if I'm fully rested and you take people away from me, I'm going to miss them. I want people. Introvert, more introspective. So think intro versus extro, right? So intro is inside. I find candidates sometimes are apologetic about being an introvert. I always say, I'm an introvert. I need time by myself to refuel.
I'm definitely that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to have time alone.
Yeah. And would you say that you've always done that as a person? So are you someone who, even as a kid, you have been introspective, introverted?
I think so. Okay. Although I like, I for whatever reason, I've had to learn how to make friends. Even as a kid, my parents were divorced, and so I had to learn every time I moved that I had to build a new set of friends and stuff like that. So my friendships tend to be a little more surface.
Yeah.
But I'm more introverted, I'd say.
Yep. You've always wanted time by yourself.
Yes.
Okay. and the way in which you like to do things. Are you someone who thinks by priority, think outside of work? Because the reason I ask about outside of work is often inside of work, we do what's needed. And so sometimes we have to change ourselves to do that. But outside of work is where we often get to be ourselves. So outside of work, are you someone who's going to make a list and I get to do a bit of routine and I get to do the first thing, the second thing, the third thing? Or are you someone where I open the email, which makes me think about the spreadsheet, which makes me text my kid and then order something on Amazon and come back to the email?
I'd say yes to both of those probably, but I am very list oriented. Like I'm on the weekend, for example, I have I feel accomplished if I get everything done on my list.
Yep. Would you rather be able to do one thing at a time? So outside of work, are you someone where I get to do the top priority on my list, then the next thing, then the next thing? Are you calm and patient in that? Or are you someone who's more excitable, a little bit impatient, want to go faster outside of work? How would your friends and family rate you?
Faster.
Okay.
More excitable, go where the energy is.
Okay.
Not necessarily work down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on a list.
Yep. If I were to ask them to rate you 1 through 10 outside of work, 1 is I'm incredibly fast paced. Everything is multitasking. I am impatient. And 10 is let me do one thing at a time, highest priority to lowest priority. How would they rate you?
2 or 3.
Okay. And then level of information. So are you someone, I'll just use the same rating outside of work, 1 through 10. 10 is I want 10 pages single spaced for the amount of information I'd like. And 1 is give me charts and graphs.
Charts and graphs. Yep.
Okay. If I put a pen in front of you and I say, don't touch the pen, what do you want to do?
Touch the pen. Hey, I better put this down.
And if I asked you, which one causes you more stress outside of work, managing the relationship or getting the goal, which one is louder for you?
The goal, I think.
Perfect. Now I'm going to tell you what
Okay.
I'll ask you one more question.
Yeah.
So if you and I live next door to each other, thoughts, feelings, and emotions on each side of the fence. 1 being it's a 1-foot fence and I can see all of your emotions and exactly what's going on inside of you. And 10 is I've got no idea what's going on inside of you. What do you think the height of your wall would be?
8.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to now read this back to you.
Okay.
And if anything doesn't feel right, stop me.
Okay.
Okay. You're a leader that is visionary. You're forward driving. You can see the goal and then will situationally bring the person along. You're going to be direct and factual in your communication. You're going to be multitasking. You're going to want just enough information to move forward, but not so much that you get bound by it. I call you a pilot profile, that you want to sit in the front of the plane. You like the strategy. You like the driving ability of figuring out how to get there and where to go, but you don't necessarily want to be the ground crew to ensure that all the things, we've got 4.5 pieces of ice in every cup and we have to have 600 cups. You want to give the directive, there have to be cups, there has to be ice. I'm going to focus on the front of the plane, which is where a lot of the risk is in owning the business and developing the strategy of we're going to get from here to here. And there's a little discontent because there's so many ways for you to see how to get there. You have a high ingenuity in the fact that you see lots of different options. That's probably why this business has been so successful, is because you think in a multidimensional way, that it isn't just yes or no, good or bad, I can or I can't, but I can see tons of different ways to do this.
Which is a blessing and a curse, I think.
Well, I think most gifts, I would say your greatest gift is you can see exactly where you want to go, and you're going to be very futuristic in thinking about where you want to get there. You're creative. There's always a way. In fact, if I tell you there's not a way, you're driven to find a way.
That's going to motivate me to find a way, probably.
100%. If I'm managing you, I'm going to give you the goal and leave you alone, because this is where I give best practices to businesses about their team members. If I'm telling someone who is working with you, he's probably going to want to pick the goal, but if you can agree upon the goal and leave him alone, he does not need help. He does not want help. If you try to micromanage him, he's going to feel like it's distrust.
Yeah.
He's going to get it at it fast, and he's going to come back and say, what's next? The only challenge sometimes is you need a deadline, because it will never be quite good enough in the fact that you always see opportunities to make it a little bit better. There's a cool...
So there's good enough and then move on.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
But that's hard for you sometimes,
Yeah.
because you see so many ways to make it great that the stop of it can be hard at times.
Yeah.
But that's just because instead of black and white, there's such a prism of colors that you want to make sure those colors are perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you will be really detailed if you need to be. So I will say you can execute well and be in the weeds of it if you have to be, but that's not your greatest gift. But sometimes I'll see you do that. And I'd tell you that you'll be tired when you do that. So make sure that you understand that you're modifying a lot when you're in the weeds. And I want you to come back out. And from a performance coaching standpoint, make sure that you have trusted people around you that can manage the details. And you're getting to sit in the front of the plane and find the strategy and the direction and help lead and guide the team in a calm, confident way to get there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you think that, like, on the detail part, because what I've found is I think that I'm more detailed when I'm working in my craft.
Oh, 100%.
Like if I'm working on a video,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like working to the detail.
That's because your name is on it. So when you've made a commitment to someone that you are going to do something great for them, the pilot will go back and make sure that there's 4.5 ice cubes in every cup, because you promised we weren't going to run out of ice.
Yeah.
So you will absolutely be situationally detailed, but you as a person outside of work, would you want to know that there's 4.5 ice cubes in every cup? Not necessarily.
Mm-mm.
But when you as a visionary leader have put your name on it, your name is gold.
Yeah.
And you will make sure that you manage it to ensure that it's done well, because your integrity is incredibly important.
So you pretty much nailed it.
Yeah. Did I miss anything?
No, I don't think so. I mean that's I need to show this to everybody. But how did you learn how to do that? That's amazing to me, because we don't know each other that
We
well.
don't. Yeah.
And what did we have? 10 questions?
Yeah.
And you've nailed it.
Yeah. I'm looking at the major components of who you are, and I've looked at DISC as a good model on those 4 components, DISC. So I've done something similar to that, but I think just through trial and error I am tasked with fixing the biggest problems in places. And when I have to fix the biggest problem, if I can't get rapport with you to be able to have trust, and I'm an outside consultant, like, who raises their hand and goes, man, I cannot wait to work with the outside consultant to give them all the knowledge so that they can come fix something that I've been trying to tell the owner to do.
Yeah.
I'm often not liked. And so I just started to ask questions, and I began to kind of develop a pattern where I understood you, or I could see who you were. But it's been 13 years of practice probably in being able to paint a picture in my mind of what you are.
So you got to write a book or something, right? I mean,
I do.
This
hear
whole
that
process
some.
needs, I mean, and the other thing I think about too is are you going into a business and sitting down with their whole management team and doing this process with them?
I am. But it's kind of hard to sell. I mean, honestly.
Why?
Well, because it's sort of hard to explain this process that I have this X-ray machine sort of process where I can see the things that are hard for you and the things that you're great at. I often come in as the operational person that's going to fix the problem, and I quietly start to get the wiring of the people, and then I put everybody together. I mean, I did this yesterday in a facilitation. I had two people that were not understanding each other in a large organization. It was so simple to me that it was a profile issue, that I
Yeah.
had a visionary leader and a very technical leader who's very detailed, and they weren't respecting each other because they weren't listening. And
But
when I
they're perfect
explained,
for each other, right?
oh, they're two sides of a coin
Yeah.
that make magic. And by
Right.
the end of the meeting, when I said, "You guys are magic together," it's not that you're disrespecting each other or that you don't respect. You're just seeing it from opposite sides, which is the beauty of the
And you
relationship.
need each other, right?
Yeah. And if you could just hear and listen, you are unstoppable as a team. And I get excited at
Wow.
the opportunity. And we walk through the conflict. And by the end of the meeting, they're excited because they see how they're going to help each other and how one will walk through conflict easier with the client that we're talking about. And the other one doesn't want to do that, but can provide all the details. And suddenly we found this commonality. I think we sometimes weaponize the profiles, and that's a shame because it ruins the whole thing.
Yeah.
But me as a profile, I'm an assertive, introverted, fast-paced, high detail. If you weaponize that, you would never hire me as a COO. If you looked at my profile, I'm not supposed to be a COO. I am too detailed. But my experience, the repetition in which I've been in so many places, and it's hard to surprise me with a problem that I haven't seen before.
Yeah.
They happen occasionally, but it's kind of rare. I'm a profile that can work as a COO because of the reps. We can't use profiles as the reason you can't do something. That's a shame, and it's dangerous.
Why wouldn't you want to be high detail if you're a COO? That seems to me like...
Well, it's interesting.
Like me?
You asked about the detail. You are naturally wired to take the risk and to walk into the conflict. Often people who are higher risk takers are not as detailed unless it's situational. And so think about, I
That
either
would
want to
be me.
be in the
Yeah.
front of the plane or the back of the plane.
Yeah.
And the back of the plane is where I'm managing and being a doer. And the front of the plane is where all I can see is out the front window. And I have a lot of risk in managing a bunch of buttons.
Yeah.
So I still have to be detailed, but I have to be able to look at the strategy, and it's situational. So often our wiring doesn't go together, that if you will walk into the fire, you also want to know that there's 4.3 doors, and that there's 6 fire extinguishers, and that there's 9 windows, and that you're not looking at that.
Yeah.
So as a high detail, sometimes I could be too low to the ground and not be able to see the strategy as well.
That's got to be pretty fun. I mean, is it
it's
fun
great.
being in a situation like that and seeing these two people that there's a lot of conflict, and all of a sudden now they're
Yeah.
like this, that
Well,
it's got to be so rewarding.
it gives me goosebumps because I can take what feels to them to be an emotional drain and something that they didn't want to be in a fight, and it's taken a toll on them. And to be able to have simple keys to fix it just by seeing who they are and their gifts and how they complement each other, I'm
Yeah.
really grateful for the ability to show that to them, because what's really simple to me is hard for them, but they do things in their job that are so hard to me that
Yeah.
I couldn't do.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is why a toolbox is so important, that I joke with organizations, we don't need all hammers, we don't need all screwdrivers, we have to have a mix of tools. And if we could just respect the differences between us, what a beautiful toolbox it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Joe talks about having the right people on the bus, and there's
Yeah.
books written about that and stuff.
Yeah.
But and in the right seats.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes so much
critical.
sense.
It's
And-
wiring and experience. And I think we have to make sure, again, as business leaders, there are a lot of profiling tools. It's being more prevalently used
Yeah.
in a lot of organizations. We need to make sure as leaders we use it as the ability to see the gifts of our team members, and it helps us have understanding for the things that might be hard for them.
Yeah.
But we don't ever use it as a negative. We can use it as a way to build a tremendous rapport and help our team members be seen. I mean, at the end of the day in the meeting, the ladies were seen, they were appreciated, and we brought them back to safety. Whereas you can feel insecure and frustrated, or, you know, your value can be nicked if someone doesn't respect you. By simply just helping them see what they are and how they work together, we brought everybody back to safety in how valuable both of these people are to the organization and how they're unstoppable together.
Now we need to go back, we need to go 6 months out and see how that's impacted the business. I bet it's significant.
It is, because people who are at odds often are just because one's in the front of the plane and one's in the back of the plane. And that's sales and operations a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, how often in organizations do sales and operations be mad? I remember at Original One where I was a salesperson one day, and then I would be out in the production floor dripping with barbecue sauce, sweaty and disgusting, coming in being mad because the sales guys had just come in from a cool lunch. That was me yesterday. And I'm mad at sales and operations because I'm like, why do they get to go to lunch? And I'm dripping with barbecue sauce. But it was me the day before.
Yeah.
You have to be able to develop systems and rapport where people understand everybody in the organization is under pressure.
Yeah.
It's different in different areas, whether that be go get the number or make sure the machines work. It's different functions, but we all have stress and pressure to get the goal.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Well, a couple more things and I want to wrap up. That was awesome. So
thanks for letting me do that.
Thank you for doing it for me. That's awesome. I'll be able to watch that.
You're
and
a
go,
visionary.
Oh, yeah.
You're a visionary. So it's no wonder that this has been built by you. When I walk through this building, it's a testament to how you saw forward and did it before other people too. I mean, that is one of the gifts of your profile is you see how to do it before other people do.
Yeah.
And you've been
now we just got to turn that into profit somehow.
Well, I just need to come here.
Yeah, I know. Come.
You'll
Yes, that's
see it.
exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
So I wanted to talk about your work in the not-for-profit Possibilities.
Yep.
Talk about that organization. What's the mother organization of that?
Yeah.
And you're on the board, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, I'm helping them. So Inclusion
Okay.
Connection. Thanks for asking about that.
Yeah.
So this was a common discussion that we had because I often, when I'm coming in and meeting with people, are making connections,
Right.
and wanted you to work with them because I'm helping them. They're a client of mine.
Yeah.
I have a brother with severe mental and physical disabilities. He's the mental capacity of a 2-year-old. So, unfortunately, he's in his 40s. He wouldn't be able to work with their organization because he's not high functioning enough.
Right.
But this is an incredible organization. I've actually consulted for pet food companies. And so they make pet treats.
Yeah.
And
My dog Maggie, who's here today, but she's in one of the offices.
Well,
she loves them.
I love that. And so they have clients with disabilities, developmental disabilities, that come in every day and they get paid to have a job. And they've got 70, 80
awesome.
clients, and it's just an incredible organization. So, me, I actually donate 25% of my time to 2 organizations right now. I work with Reconciliation Services and Possibilities, which is Inclusion Connection. And I'm really blessed that those are, I love my clients, but getting to walk into Possibilities building and they're just so warm and loving and hugging on me. And they've got all kinds of accessories for dogs. It's such a cool and amazing thing.
You think about the market.
Yeah.
That's a great market for them to
It is.
really grow in. I mean, they could make a legit business out of what they're doing.
They are, and they're trying to get bigger. That's why I'm helping them.
Yeah.
Is to work on expanding their business and be able to make more treats. And I know they've got a building in the plans to be able to put up a multifamily building where their clients can live. So they've got some
Live and work.
Yeah, they've got some really big ideas.
That's amazing.
And you got to go look them up. They're incredible.
Do you know the website by chance?
I don't, but
Okay.
maybe you can
We'll
tag
put it in
in
the show notes or
Yeah,
something.
yeah. But yeah, there's somebody that needs your help
Yeah.
and your gift to be able to. I just attended an event last week. They had 700 people at the event,
Amazing.
and it was just incredible. But they had a fashion show, and for me, because of my brother, to be able to see the worth, to see the confidence, you don't know what it's like to have a child with disabilities until you do.
Yeah.
You can explain to people what it might be like or think that you know, but it takes an angel. It's a lot of patience and pressure, and they're frustrated and can't communicate sometimes.
Yeah.
And so this ability to go for a day every day and be able to make money and have this substantiated job that brings you all of this worth and confidence, it's just they're saving lives and changing lives there.
So just a little side note, we have a friend that has their son has cerebral palsy,
Yep.
but he's I think he's 30-ish.
Yeah.
So my wife and I stayed with him this weekend.
Yeah.
And super smart. I mean, like he's got his degree, a Bible degree, and really really amazing guy. But he has trouble talking, so it takes him a while, and you have to help him eat and go to the bathroom and all this stuff. But we had the best time hanging out with him.
Yeah.
And he just needs somebody with him, most of the time. But you think about, his life has worth, and the things that he's doing, and just seeing, the stigma that comes with that. But when you actually hang out with somebody like that and get to know them and get to spend time with them, and you forget about all that stuff.
You do.
And we had an amazing weekend.
I love that you shared that. It's my brother, even though at a mental capacity of a 2-year-old, has love that is so pure.
Yeah.
Because he's stayed a child. I mean, his ability to just be so incredibly happy and loving and wants to hug. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's rare that he doesn't, when I'm with him, he wants to be hugging the whole time.
Yeah.
He's so affectionate and loving and caring. But when you take him to Walmart and he's trying to do that to people, they're turning away. And I remember as a kid, people, like mothers, would move their kids to the other side.
Yeah.
That was hard to see, but you
Fear.
can't. Yeah. But he can't be left alone,
Yeah.
and he can't feed himself, and he can't go to the bathroom. He can't communicate. He's mostly nonverbal. This is not an easy job.
Yeah.
When he gets frustrated, he bites. This is not something easy. So there are many incredibly talented, amazing people that help with him for me. And organizations like this, where parents also get a little bit of a refuel while their students and their kids
they
are coming
need so
to this
desperately.
organization. Yeah, because this is a 24-hour job.
Yeah. So Joe is the name of the guy, the man we were with. So his parents lived next door to him. They bought a house, and they actually went out of town for Valentine's Day weekend. So Joe didn't want to go. They were going to take him, and he's like, "No, I want to stay home."
Yeah.
And Joe called us. And we know him from school and stuff like that, but we're like, sure, we'll do this. But you mentioned that. I mean, it's like the toll. My wife and I talked about this. The toll every day of taking care of somebody like that,
With no break. And you can't really tell anybody, and they understand.
Right.
It sounds like you're complaining.
Right.
Because you don't want it to be a burden to explain it, that there's no mental break. My brother would just start to cry for no reason, and then my dad would get angry, and then my mom would get angry, and this was a constant cycle.
Yeah.
This was they're just, and he would get frustrated because he couldn't communicate, and then he would hit, and this is something
Just kind of spiral.
This is 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
This is the middle of the night, because you can't explain to his mental ability that it's the middle of the night.
Yeah.
And, he doesn't understand that my mom and dad are gone. When I see him, he asks every time where my mom and dad are.
Yeah.
And there's little paper cuts all the time with them that are hard to explain.
Yeah.
Because I'm now getting old enough that I look like my mom. So sometimes he calls me my name and sometimes he calls me mom.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Wow.
because he's confused.
Yeah.
So
Understandably.
it's not an easy job. And to have an organization just dedicated, they're in Lenexa. They have a storefront where you can walk in, but they have breaks for people. But just, I mean, if my brother were at an ability where he could go, to have a job where you get to tangibly do things and you can see what you've done and you have a store that people can shop in and all the things.
Yeah.
I'm so lucky that they let me come in and donate and volunteer and work. Like, I just feel blessed that they let me do it.
Well, we need to be sure to check out the show notes and go to the website and donate, get dog treats, all the stuff. They need to go do that. It's in Olathe, right? On isn't it on 135th?
Yeah, it's in
Olathe, in the shopping center.
Yeah, it's right there. Yeah, it's by Savers over in Olathe. Yeah,
right.
Yep.
So you can go there and do that. So be sure to check it out. So I want to go ahead and wrap up. One of the last things that we always do, if you haven't seen one of our podcasts, is we have you do the movie voice. So I would love to have you give this a shot. Okay. So you just have to get really close to the mic and you go, "In a world with real media."
Okay, you ready?
You ready?
Yep.
Okay, here we go.
In a world with real media.
All right, you may have a future as a voice talent. So
hey, I'll try anything.
Well, this has been awesome, Lindsay. It's really cool. I appreciate you doing this with me. I've been looking forward to this because I'm like, this is something that would be really cool for me personally. So, I'm selfishly saying that, by the way, but you do so many great things and I just appreciate you and what you're doing. And the last thing, if somebody did want to get a hold of you, maybe they see the podcast, is LinkedIn the best way to do that?
Yeah, you can look me up on LinkedIn. I'll just give my email. It's Lindsay, LINDSAY at howkc.com. I'm always looking to help organizations that have a big impact. So I didn't mention, but I've got a purpose to change 1 million lives. And that's my company purpose and my personal purpose is I'm going to change 1 million lives before my last breath. So if I can do that for somebody, I'm excited to help them.
You think you're about halfway there yet, or?
I feel like I'm more than that.
Okay,
I
good.
think I am, but I'm just going to change it to 2 million if I get to 1 million.
Okay,
so.
good.
Yeah.
Keep going. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Thank you everybody for joining us. This is the In a World with Real Media podcast. Be sure to subscribe, share this. A lot of people need to see what we did today, and reach out to Lindsay. I mean, this is something that could really help your company. Maybe even a marriage. Who knows? I think there's a lot of cool things that could come from this. So we look forward to seeing you next time, and thank you very much. This has been In a World with Real Media. Thanks for joining us, and be sure to subscribe on iTunes and follow Real Media on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn so you never miss an episode.